Hi guys, you know the face, you know the name, Bobby here, back again with another special guest on the No Beef podcast. You know how we do it, we don't introduce the guest, they introduce themselves, so please take it away.
Okay, thanks, Bobby. Hi, everyone. My name's Michael Richardson. My pronouns are he, him. I work in the public sector. I'm a trade unionist, the equalities officer for my branch. And I suppose I'd describe myself as a bit of an equalities activist with a bit of a focus on the LGBT plus community because I'm a cis gay guy. And probably just because I know the podcast is really kind of interesting. There's always lots of kind of interesting guests. So just to kind of give a caveat for myself, in terms of kind of my experience of racism, you know, I'm born in and kind of grown up in Scotland. Yeah, my experience is pretty kind of limited, I'd say, and quite heavily tainted by white privilege. So just bear that in mind, please.
Michael, thank you for coming on. Really appreciate it. I know you're a busy guy. So, you know, as you know how I do on the podcast, I don't waste time. I go right in. Now, yes. Michael, you're a white male, okay?
Yep.
And you're gay, okay? So, talk me through being Michael.
Yeah, so in terms of kind of looking at like from the sort of discrimination side, because I suppose that's what we need to be tackling. I'd say over the last couple of years and in my current employer, I haven't really faced any discrimination.
Okay. So that's your current employer at the moment?
Current employer at the moment, yeah. But previously in other industries that I worked in, then I have faced discrimination because I'm gay, and not the kind of overt in your face type discrimination or homophobia. It's that sort of the subtle stuff, which I think is always more difficult to
casual.
You know, casual, yeah, difficult to identify. Not for me as a gay man, but I think for other people who are not gay or who are not knowledgeable wouldn't necessarily pick stuff up. So just to give you an example, you know, I worked in an office. I joined the office, and you know, I didn't tell anyone I was gay straight away because you know you get to know you. And so the sort of the manager would you know on a Monday ask people what they did at the weekend and sort of go around and chat with everyone, and that was great. And then after he found out that I was gay, and after most of the people in the office found out I was gay, I think I'd say that during a conversation, the manager stopped asking me what I did at the weekend. And it was just this kind of subtle thing, because you think, well, I don't know what he was scared of. Now that he knows I'm gay, what the answer's going to be, you know, the answer's not going to change. You know, I went to Tesco and I, you know, did this, you know. So, it made me just feel a little bit excluded that he then stopped asking that. Ask other people.
Let's hold that thought, Michael. You know,
okay.
I want to get into that quite deep. You know, obviously the No Beef podcast is about talking about racism, discrimination on all forms. You know, I've made that very clear, and we're trying to bring awareness. Now, it hurts me to know that, you know, you had to go through that. Because I've said it again, we're all human beings. We all both are cut ourselves right now down our foreheads. We bleed the same color. I just want to, and just to the people that are going to be listening and watching this, can you describe a few words how that made you feel? Did you feel alienated, ignored?
Very much so, and I felt that it made other people in the office who just then felt like, oh, maybe it just felt like they didn't want to be included in the conversations. You know, I almost felt like that, and no one addressed it. And I think that was the other thing. I don't know if they noticed it or if they did notice it and just ignored it. And I don't know what was worse, you know, to then think that the colleagues now knew that on a Monday morning, branch manager would walk around and ask people, and just would sort of, just with me, it would be just straight to work. Oh, are you going out to that? You know, you're going out there today? You know, no, nothing. And so, yeah, it made me feel kind of weird and also a bit confused, because I didn't really understand, other than the fact that he then found out I was gay, I couldn't work out anything else that would have changed. There'd been no sort of personal conflict that I was aware of, you know, that kind of caused that. So I knew it was linked to that. And you also feel a bit sort of, not guilty, but you feel like, well, maybe if I'd have, you know, told them from day one, I would never have noticed any change, or maybe I should have, just kept it hidden forever. And then you think, well, I don't know what the right answer is and what the right thing to do was. So it's a bit confusing and a bit, very alienating.
So what was the? I mean, did you challenge that, or did you bring it up? Because the reason I'm asking is because it's to be able to do that is very brave, very courageous, and when I flip it over to the racism side of being discriminated against because of color of skin, you as a person don't want to be seen as a problem.
Yeah.
And that's unfortunately in majority of workplaces, that's the conclusion. So I mean, how did you deal with that?
Yeah, I mean, this was years ago, and I suppose I didn't have that kind of confidence or comfortability to raise that as an issue. I wouldn't have known how to raise it, I suppose. You can't just, I mean, you could say, do you not ask me about my weekend because I'm gay? But it's a very kind of confrontational thing, and like you're saying, you don't want to be difficult, and really in this sort of sum total of him not asking me about my weekend, I don't really lose anything. There's no kind of negative value to my day as such. Okay, it means I can't talk about it with him or in the office, and it has an impact. But it's not like, if it was something that was, something that he was doing that was, I don't know, more obvious and more in my face that I had to deal with, I probably would have dealt with it. But because it was that, I think, well, maybe he's just not interested in what you do at the weekend. Maybe all the answers are given, weren't as exciting as other people were. That's not the case, but you sort of justify it to yourself to make it seem like, oh, it's not a big issue. And I didn't deal with it because then I also didn't deal with it because if you then sort of find out that actually it is because, the person's homophobic or racist or whatever, that then creates a kind of, I wouldn't say hostile, almost a hostile work environment for you then, because you think, right, okay, if they did that, what other views have they got? What, and you just then, it just kind of, I think, tear you apart inside thinking about it.
You just think, do you know what? I'll just come in, do my job, and leave. And do you know what, Michael? I'm not God. I can't judge anyone. Okay. And you know what? Everyone is different, and we all have different decisions. And let's be honest, it's tough. You were going into, that's a scenario that you probably didn't expect to have. Why should you expect to have? I think as I said earlier, there's nothing right or wrong about it. I mean, I think I'd like to think now, if it did happen, you'd have the courage and the strength to go for it, because I'm going to elaborate on this. I know, see, mental health, and we always talk about mental health, but we never talk about men's mental health as much. Regarding as the females, and I might be wrong, it could be just as equal, I don't know, but I'm gonna categorize you right now, okay? A gay man's mental health, in the sense of, question, will I still be welcomed? Question, will they still like me? Question, do I have to change the way I have to speak? Question, do I have to change the way I am? And that's before you even walked in your workplace. It's tough. So I salute you for going through that. And obviously, we need to speak of the new conclusion. Obviously, you're at your current workplace, and how is that to the contrast of your previous?
I mean, it's vastly different. In a positive way, just to be clear. And I think, I mean, it's obviously partly because over the kind of couple of years or few years since I worked in a previous workplace, you hear other people's experiences and you kind of learn and you think, well, actually, and people give you ideas about how to challenge it or what you should do or who you should speak to for advice or guidance. And that's crucial, so that you've then got that knowledge yourself to be able to say, okay, and to make those decisions in certain circumstances, do I challenge it? Do I say something? Do I not? What's the right way to do it? But so in my current workplace, no, I've not had any issues.
Brilliant.
I mean, and I attribute that partly, I think, to the fact that I am quite confident and sort of outgoing, and I think people, and I'm quite early at getting that in there, that I'm gay. I try and let people know early, because I did think, and I reflected on people will sometimes ask questions, like, have you got a girlfriend or something like that? And then that's the point, you have to come out or not. And so I thought, well, in order to avoid those situations, I'd rather early on let people know, okay, I'm gay, I'll just in some kind of casual way. So I haven't kind of faced any issues in my workplace. They've been really supportive of some of the work that I'm doing for the LGBT plus community.
Brilliant.
So yeah, I think, it's kind of refreshing and encouraging, I would say. So, and I know it makes a difference to other people.
Times.
Sorry?
Did you say your new workplace is moving with current times?
I would very much say so. And it makes a difference to other people. I've had people contacting me, from the LGBT plus community, just kind of thanking me or just kind of saying it's so nice to see, or that, and that is the kind of thing that keeps you going, I think, hearing the horrific stories and the discrimination, the homophobia, the transphobia, the racism, whatever it is that goes on, that is hard to hear. But that keeps you going, but also then the nice stuff, I think they both kind of keep you, going in the right direction. So yeah, it's been good lately.
Good. I salute you in that. Now,
yeah, thanks.
Michael, what would you say to a person that was in your previous position at your previous workplace? What would you say to them if a gay, trans, lesbian, or anyone was watching on it? What would you advise them, or what would you say, or any words of encouragement?
Yeah, I mean, I think don't ever put yourself in a kind of unsafe environment. Remove yourself from that where you can, and speak to someone. There's within the LGBT plus community, there's the LGBT helpline. There's lots of organisations out there that I think, if you don't have a HR department, or you don't have any sort of staff networks or that in your workplace to speak to, and maybe you don't know anyone else like you or similar backgrounds, go to another organization and just have a chat. And I think people, can give you more advice or, point stuff out. So I think that's it. And it's that kind of old chestnut that things do get better. But at the time, like, I appreciate that it can be difficult to deal with. And if you're not comfortable or confident enough to kind of challenge it, then don't just kind of, and get yourself. And if you're in a workplace that's like that, get your CV updated and start to make the move, really.
Right. And thank you for that, because I can only give you experience of a black man. I'm not gay. I've never been discriminated against for my sexuality. So I'm glad you said that, and I do hope that anyone that is watching or listening, they take some encouragement for that. You should be able to be comfortable to be yourself. So no, thank you for that, Michael. Michael,
thank you.
Racism, okay, systematic racism, and so on.
Okay.
And so on. I'm not going to ask your thoughts on it, okay, because I'm aware of your thoughts.
Sure.
What is your view? So I know what you think of it, but when you see racism. Okay.
Yeah. So racism, like in just everywhere.
Yeah.
Because that, unfortunately, it is everywhere. Yeah. I think over the last couple of years, I've become a bit more kind of aware and of identifying and kind of recognizing that. So, for instance, for me, when I sometimes get asked to speak on sort of, panels or at events, sometimes for the LGBT plus community, sometimes not. And it's one of the first things I do when an organization gets in touch. I immediately reply back, basically asking about the diversity of the panel, the other speakers. And I also go on their website and I kind of look for their board of directors or their chair or whoever, and I kind of just have a quick visual look, right? And so for me, that is kind of when I recognize it. I mean, I recognize that I feel a little bit sad, because I think, especially in the LGBT plus community, when you've been the victims of discrimination, for decades and still are, we should be a bit more, aware of that, and kind of, I don't know if sensitive is the right word, but we should be more kind of, thoughtful about that, so that our organizations are not going down that same path where they're just being kind of led or championed by, white straight cis men or even white straight people. We need to do more. So, and I think all organizations need to do that, and it's not the responsibility of me to say, well, how diverse is your panel or the event you're you should be thinking about that as an organisation. That should be just something, but no, along with where are we going to have it, who are we going to, what's the capacity, what's their agenda, what is the diversity of the panel, and it needs to be like key to what you're doing. It can't come as an afterthought because someone raises it to you, and that's what I've seen a lot of the time. Within those kind of organisations.
So when you say afterthought, I'm glad you said that's afterthought, because a company or an organization saw something, oh, we should be doing something. So it becomes like a bit of a trend. It's fashionable. It's relevant, you know. And that's another thing about the BAME community and the BLM, you know. Even on social media, you see it when it's in our faces, trending, everyone's alert to it, then it fades away.
Yeah.
And I think what I'm trying to do with this podcast, keep it going, you know, having conversations with people like yourself, who go through discrimination, who can say, look, I've been there, you know, not because of my colour of my skin, but because of my sexuality. And we need to keep the subject happening, because I think the more we listen, the more we learn, the more we share, it becomes our new normality. And when I say the new normality, I mean, because for some reason, a certain group of people think it's normal to be racist towards people like me. A certain group of people think it's normal to be discriminative or say provocative words towards you because of sexuality. So that's what I mean, a new normality, you know, where we don't disrespect, we accept and respect, you know. And that's what I want. And, you know, I can post so many things of BLM or racial acceptance and stuff like that, but I feel this podcast is helping. It's my way of trying to help the community. And also you're helping as well because you're speaking right now. So I mean, the next question leads on to like what do you think is the next thing to be done? And I'm not saying about but no, I am actually,
Okay.
Let's say society, Edinburgh, you know, what do you think should be done next or should be acknowledged to be done next?
Sure, I think certainly I agree that the sort of you know, the short-term wins and the quick wins that people do in response to Black Lives Matter at the moment and that fashionable trend, that is a problem, because people will see organisations doing something and think, oh, if they're doing that, they must be doing lots of other things to tackle systemic racism. We'll leave them alone, or won't hassle them, you know. And that's not the case. We know organisations will do the little thing, and that's it, because they you know, they get the publicity and the praise for doing that. I think we need to look at the kind of things that really kind of address the issues, you know, that affect or kind of improve or increase the kind of systemic racism and discrimination in organisations. And I think so for instance, from like living in Edinburgh, and you look at the kind of democratically elected institutions, so the local council, you know, we've got 63 councillors, all of them are white. And that appears to have always been the case from my understanding and my questions. That's always been the case. Now, I know that's not something that you can kind of solve overnight. But we need to, and political parties need to be thinking ahead. You know, we have local government elections in 2 years' time, so 2022. They need to be having those conversations now in their local branches with their respective political parties to say, okay, what can we do now that means that when we get to that stage of the elections, we've got more, you know, Black people on the kind of candidate list, more people that want to stand. And how do we support and protect them so that they feel confident enough to kind of step forward and put themselves on the ballot paper? Because that's an intimidating thing for the first Black person to maybe become a councillor, you know, just like you're the first woman to join the House of Parliament or whatever, you know, the first of anything is a daunting experience. But we need to kind of, you know, mitigate that, so that, because that's the only way we're going to get long-lasting change is then having.
It's quite sad. Sorry to cut you off, Michael.
Very sad.
You don't think it's quite sad that me and you are even identifying that it'll be the first woman, the first Black person. You know, and it's like, you know, I mean, 2020 has brought ups and downs and sideways and, you know, adapting, you know, adjusting, and, you know, I can't help think that people a lot older than us, generation,
Yeah.
were trying to do the same things, trying to make the same changes. And
Yeah.
I won't say they failed, because, they can't have failed if there's people like us, still going,
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I just think they must be frustrated,
Yeah.
still going on.
Yeah.
Would you
I
say
would
that's
agree.
a good way to describe that?
I think so, and very disheartened. I think
Yeah.
is like if you've been fighting for and pushing for and trying to encourage and engage with people to get something done to change, the sort of landscape, or to get certain groups of people more accepted or better represented, or face less discrimination. If you're doing all that and then you think that it's not making any difference, that can be disheartening. But I think, like you say, people should not give up or take umbrage, because we're coming through, we're continuing that fight. It's not something that's going to be, fixed in 20, 30
Yeah,
years.
yeah.
And I think as long as there are other people that are coming through and saying, okay, this is what we've been doing, let's try this, or let's try a new way of doing it. Because, I mean, in 20, 30 years, you think of the technological advances, social media, there's a lot more different ways to do things, I think, and for people to get engaged. And
Mhm.
I think younger people are getting more engaged now because of social media. So I think that is going to make a big difference. And I think we just need to kind of keep that fight going, of course.
100%, 100%. And I'm glad you touched on the younger generation, because we do have technology. We live in a generation where everyone has smartphones. You can get your information. You go into your Google app or into your Safari browser. Which is good. Which is good. And also, we have technology that we can be able to set up conversations like this. Because I know it's with COVID and stuff, but I think it's to keep it moving. Keep the conversation going. And I'd like to think. In fact, I will say that. Things are changing. There is a slight change in the wind. And do you know what? It's not even. I don't think you can even show any anger or animosity, because I'm thinking, do you know what? That's good. LGBT should be acknowledged. The BAME should be acknowledged.
Yeah.
And when I say BAME, my network, the BAME network that I head up, we are acting as a voice for everyone. You can be white female. You can be Eastern European. You can be Chinese, Asian, Black, anything, and you are welcomed, open arms in my network, because, segregation has taught us it didn't work last time.
Absolutely.
Let's try a new practice, right?
You're absolutely right. We do that in the LGBT plus community because, because I think if you only let LGBT plus people attend certain events or come to your meetings, okay, it becomes a bit of an echo chamber, because everybody says, "Oh, that happened to you. Yeah, that happened to me." Okay. And of course, that kind of that builds a bit of connection between you. But in terms of making any changes, it's the allies, the supportive allies, that need to be in the room, hearing those stories, hearing those experiences, and saying, "Oh, is that actually what it's like for LGBT plus people?" Okay, well, what can I do? Or people should be saying, well, what we need is straight allies saying, asking about this or raising issues. So I think. And it's the same, I suppose, with racism, is you need white people along with you to sort of say, okay, well, you're anti-racist, you're welcome. I mean, that's the thing, we have to tackle it together. And I think that also helps. I've always found when, if you've got white people along, and then it's white people that are, say, often kind of committing racist stuff. So other white people say, well, actually, that's not cool. You can't say that. That's not the language we use anymore, or calling it out. People are more likely to, listen to someone who looks like them, rather than the people that they are not meaning to attack, or that they do mean to attack. They don't want to hear, if someone else says, well, you can't do it. And I think we found that quite useful within the LGBT plus community. So, yeah.
I'm glad, because do you know what? I've said this before, all this segregation is the problem, okay? Uniting is the solution. Like I always said, united for a diverse future. And I'll keep repeating it until, it makes massive shockwaves. I think in my network, I'm very blessed with the people that are on my committee team, our little team. So blessed and so grateful to be with them, And I think that, having a conversation with you, okay, I'm going to say it, a white gay man, about discrimination.
Yeah.
I personally think this speaks volumes for both our communities. Do you know why? Because you are comfortable to talk about your trauma. You are comfortable to open up. I'm comfortable to open up and listen and learn, And I'm very happy to call you my friend, Now, imagine if other individuals of the same communities or any other community can say, I heard what Michael said on the No Beef podcast. I know what he's talking about because so and so have that happen. Do you know what I mean? And I just want, I just want to keep bringing awareness, and but I don't just want to keep having the conversation. I want to come up with a solution.
Okay.
I know my workplace. They are making loads of strides to becoming less relevant, current.
Okay.
And they are acknowledging, they are trying to, let's not say get with the times, but they are acknowledging a lot of stuff. And for me, Michael, it's breathtaking. It's so good.
Yeah.
It's I don't think it's been I know 2020 is probably the year of, and excuse my language, fuckery.
I'd second that. Yeah.
But it is, isn't it? From going into work and then working from home, it's just like, what? And you know what? I need to shout out to, obviously, people that are watching, people that have lost family members. Our prayers are out to them because it has been a very, very fucked year. However, in every bit of darkness, there is some light.
True.
And I'm trying to shine my light on this and be like, look, we can all come out of this together, and I do hope people from your community, my community, talk more, and all other communities, because like I keep saying, we need to keep talking, and I feel like the way I'm doing this is that I'm not being militant about it. I'm just saying, I am a human being, you're a human being. Have you ever had this happen before? Am I the only one? No, actually, you're not.
You're absolutely right. And when you start saying that, people, that's always a very comforting thing when you realise that the experience you thought that was just singular to yourself, it was a very lonely experience, suddenly, has actually happened to not just one other person, but lots of other people. And I think, like I mentioned earlier, it then helps because then someone will have a good idea about how they dealt with it, or a good place for advice, and that is how, until someone's had that shared experience, you can't, you don't know how to deal with it. So I think that is always very useful. Yeah.
Exactly. So the old saying goes, a problem half shared is a problem half solved. Correct?
Yes. Very much agree with that, Bobby.
So Michael, how do you feel about talking about racism with a black male?
So I feel a lot more, I suppose, relaxed now than what I would have done 2-3 years ago.
Okay. So talk me through it. The Michael 2-3 years ago.
2-3 years ago.
How would you have been?
I think I probably would have, so at school and stuff. For instance, there was hardly any kind of non-white children in our school. My friend group therefore was white people.
Dominant white people.
So so in terms of kind of then throughout my working life as well, I never really had much experience working alongside anyone other than white people. So I didn't have the knowledge. I also had that thing that I think a lot of white people go through is the first time you hear black people talking about white privilege. You sort of, the initial gut reaction is to feel, attacked, okay? Which is illogical. Well, it's illogical, right? It doesn't make any sense. But I think because I think it's the word privilege, if I'm honest, Bobby, I think people often kind of confuse privilege with like wealth or status. And of course, privilege can be a bit of that, but I think, so people then think, well, I'm not wealthy. I'm not, I'm from the same area as you. So, and I think people then get their back up and they think, they just take it personally.
Yeah.
I don't know why. I think it's because they don't understand what the phrase white privilege means, or what just privilege means in general.
But do you know, Michael, sorry to cut you off there,
yeah.
Mike, do you know the funny thing is? You know, when you say white privilege and stuff, and people be like, most white people have like, I'm not privileged.
Yeah.
I don't understand why they don't ask, what do you mean by white privilege? Instead of taking, the defensive role, just say, okay, well, what did you mean by that? Well, actually,
you're right. Because anytime you hear a term or a phrase that you don't understand, you can either ask about it or you can go and educate yourself. Like if it's not the right environment to ask someone because it's on a platform, they're on a speaker or something, whatever.
Yeah.
But then and then Google it and go on YouTube and understand it and then educate yourself about what that means. Don't just, oh, no, I'm not privileged and that's it. Because then you've suddenly got this inbuilt reaction, this negative inbuilt reaction, that's not me. And then if someone is addressing you and they're talking about white privilege, that then becomes the kind of sticking point for you. You kind of switch off after the word white privilege. You think, I'm the white privilege, it's nothing to do with me.
Because it's not an attack, Michael. It's not.
No,
it's not.
It's not.
It's an attack.
No, it's just it's a very kind of clear descriptor of what we're talking about. And I suppose just to kind of give an understanding for people that are listening or watching, and I suppose what I mean when I say kind of privilege or white privilege, I kind of tend to think it's something, it's if like a feature of a person that they can't choose, they didn't change. That's not right. Yeah, that they can't choose and can't change. That when it aligns in a particular way, so usually with the majority of other people in their city or country, by having it that way, your life is not made harder.
Yeah.
Conversely, if it aligns not with the majority, your life can and probably will be a little bit harder by that. So, we talk about, male privilege, white privilege. So, depending on how many of those different privileges you've got, your life is not going to be harder. And the more intersectionality. So, if you look at, say, black trans women, in terms of, the odds are really stacked against people.
Exactly, yeah.
So, and like I know as a white cis man and walking down the street, people may assume, until I tell them I'm gay, that I'm straight. They assume that I'm very much at the top of that privilege ladder. And that's something I'm aware of, and I do recognize that, in different environments, I am at the top of the privilege ladder just because of that. And then, even when you kind of tell people you're gay, it brings you down one rung, but it doesn't kind of level the playing field as such.
Yeah.
So I think people need to not take offense at that. They need to just understand what it means. I didn't choose to be white or male, but that's how I am. But I think if you just ignore that or dismiss that, I think that's doing a really disservice to other people and saying, well, actually,
individual as well.
Yeah, of course. I mean, recognize your privilege, and then the power that comes with, because having the privilege gives you, access to certain kind of platforms and things that you then have a little bit of power. And I've said to you before, Bobby, I always believe that if you have, privilege or access to a platform or any kind of power, you should use a little bit of that at least to kind of, advocate for less or more marginalized groups. That's the least you can do. If you're in it and you just kind of say, well, I've got here and I'm all right, Jack, see you all later. That's, excuse my language, that's a really shitty thing to do.
No, and I'm glad you said that, because, it is facts. You can't argue facts with opinion. Yeah. I've said this before. And, it's, so sorry, I know we came across from, obviously, we've elaborated on the white privilege. Well, now we were saying that obviously because your circle was dominant, you all white, your friends were all white. Yeah. Obviously, you didn't really interact with black people. Not that you're a racist or anything like that. You were just you didn't come and connect or social network and stuff. So fast forward to now, Michael, what's the difference? What's changed?
Yeah. So some of the big changes is over the last kind of couple of years, I've gone to a lot of events and panel discussions for sort of queer people of colour. So that's people of colour or black people within the LGBT plus community. And I went along and that kind of opened my eyes to yeah, the racism and discrimination that exists within the LGBT plus community, which ironically are a discriminated community. And so I kind of thought, oh, wow, okay, we need to, there's a problem.
Yeah.
And then I realized, well, if there's a problem within our LGBT plus community, and we are kind of used to identifying and dealing with discrimination, then there has to be a problem in the non-LGBT plus community, the wider part of society. And then, I think I then became a trade unionist, and trade unionists are very anti-discriminatory by nature. So, and tackling racism is kind of what that's all about. So I've then did a lot of kind of reading, watching YouTube videos, just to understand really white privilege, white fragility, so that I've kind of got that knowledge and just that experience of and it's from a white perspective, of course, but it's to understand when Black people are talking about certain things or raising things that, it's not an attack. It's about, okay, well, this is an issue. This is a problem we've identified. How can we kind of work together? And then I've learned, well, hey, the big question I always ask is, what can I do? How can I help? What should I do? In any circumstance, whether that's through my trade unions or through, in the workplace, whatever it is, because I don't often know what the right thing to do is. Do you know what I mean? I don't. So
unless you ask.
Yeah.
And that's why I keep going back to it, Michael. I keep going back to it.
Yeah.
What can I? You said it. What can I do to help? Okay, be part of the solution. How do we work together? Let's come up with a solution. And God bless you, man, because, I'm hearing someone else speak the way I think,
Okay,
oh, you look
right.
like me. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's like, use your privilege, you are a white male, okay? So, speak up for the other communities. And so the Black community, speak up for other communities. Because let's be honest, racism and discrimination isn't just white on black, okay?
No.
It can be black on white, different between different races, and obviously discrimination can be towards women as well. We need to remember that. So we need to be part of the solution. And I'm glad you said that, and I hope that that phrase sticks in people's heads. Be part of the solution, because I can't wait decades down the line, when I'm old and retired and stuff, and I see people from the BAME community or young Black people, I'll be selfish and say it, young Black people applying to my workplace. And when they apply, they're aware that there is a support system there for them. And then they can be like, oh someone started this, his name was Bob. And that's what I'm working for. Because like you, when you went to your new workplace, you were welcomed. You were appreciated and celebrated, And it's like, it's like, oh, I have a place here,
Absolutely. You feel, you're right, welcome. That is the kind of key thing. And then you want to stay. And I think for any employer, if you've gone through the effort and cost of recruiting and then training someone, you don't want them to walk out the door because they don't feel, that they can be themselves or that they're welcome. That's a really sad thing. And I think organizations need to be able to kind of, show that they're doing something to address that and identifying that you've got a problem. Sometimes, like to say, that's the first step is okay, we have an issue. How do we resolve it? Do we speak to employees directly? Do we get other organizations in for advice? But you've got to ask that question, what should we do? If you just sit back and don't do anything and don't ask those questions, guess what? Nothing's going to change. It's going to be the same thing for years and decades. So that is the first step. And I think people are usually quite, receptive when they hear about organizations that do that say, okay, well, we have got an issue and this is what we're going to try and do to resolve it. It's better that than just ignoring it and dismissing it, because that's more damaging, I'd say.
Conclusion,
No.
Do that, and I can only hope and pray that the way that I'm going, and obviously at your own workplace, that we can help others, get comfortable, feel welcome, feel accepted, that they have a place, and that is the new normality, Michael,
Yes, it needs to be.
Exactly.
I absolutely agree. You're right. As long as when you're doing the work and you do know that it is making a difference, that is the kind of thing that keeps you wanting to do it, because you think, yeah, actually, I wish someone had done it for me, but you know what? There wasn't someone in that position. There wasn't someone with the right connections or the knowledge or the experience to do that. If I'm in that position and have those skills, then I should do this. Like, I have to do this, you know, there's no one else around to do that. So I need to. So, yeah, I totally agree.
On that, Michael, I will conclude that. Thank you so much for your time. Seriously, I
Thanks
really
for having me.
appreciate it. There you have it, guys. You know, Michael has gave us his views and thoughts, and also he's wanting to be part of the solution and help, which is very, very key. Safe to say there's no beef between me and Michael. Guys, thank you for listening. Please listen, share. Okay, take care.